The guy I'm bringing up to the stage is absolutely crushing it all across the United States. He's probably one of the top 10 investors in the country. He's absolutely crushing it. 35 deals a month, multiple markets. Definitely a guy you want to follow. He also has a meetup group that meets quarterly. In Schaumburg. Check it out. He does beat me because he gives out free food, so I gotta give him kudos on that. So, but please, he's, like I said, he's crushing it. He's doing more than the gurus that are selling you courses for tens of thousands of dollars. They're not even doing the type of volume that he's doing. So he's got a lot of systems, and he's not gonna come up unless you guys say, he's gonna be talking about raising private money, unless you guys say, show me the money. So, okay. Show me the money. Show me the money. Show me the money. Show me the money. Put your hands together for Mr. Dan Breslin.
I love this guy's energy, huh? See, I need some slack. I need to be able to go back and forth here on stage. This is weird. Being on stage. He talked about the gurus, you know, and like early on in the business, it's like, oh yeah, you know, them guys that can't do deals are up on the stage, you know, just selling, talking about stuff, and they're not doing any deals. Who here knows about my podcast, checks that out, knows who I am? Anybody? We got a couple here? I am sorry I forgot to blast this out to my list, Josh. It's been so hectic here, even in December for me, so my apologies. I wish I would have done that. There would have been a few more people here. So I'll start off. I'm Dan Breslin. I am the founder of Diamond Equity Investments. I started that business in 2006. I was broke. My dad had to give me a ride to a meeting like this because I didn't have a car. I was down to my last $100 in July of 2006 when I put a newspaper ad. Do you remember newspapers? Anybody? They don't really work for generating leads, but back in 2006, I did end up doing like deal, 2 deals, 3 deals a month out of that newspaper ad for $200. $200 a month. So I put that newspaper ad in, ended up doing a wholesale deal, made $6,000 on that first one in July 2006, rode the market up a little bit, rode that market down. Personally had challenges in my life, went way down. Through 2011, 2012, January 21st, 2012, I quit drinking. That was a problem for me. And then my life started to go up, and it hasn't stopped going up since. I did that in Philadelphia. Back in 2006, 2005, my daughter moved to Chicago. She was like 4 at the time, and it was always a pipe dream of mine. I'm like, man, if I could just like move to Chicago. It would be like heaven if I could move to Chicago. Because I just wanted to like not have a plane ride between seeing my daughter. We could only afford to like, it was a big day when she could fly by herself, I think at like 5 or 6 years old, and come back and forth to Philadelphia and spend the weekend like once a month when I can afford it. So in 2015, I was blessed to be like a much better marketer, a much better real estate analyst and negotiator, and doing lots of flips and lots of wholesale deals. I had people on the ground, a team in Philadelphia, and I looked around. I didn't have to go out and look at the properties anymore, so it was time. I picked up and I moved to Chicago. Got a condo right on the lake, and it looked like the abominable snowman out there. It was like these ice chunks are floating. I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? It was January. So I started out in Florida too at the same time. We got here in Chicago, we opened in Chicago, we opened in Tampa, Florida. Since then, I've added Atlanta to the repertoire. So Atlanta's a really good market. I have a really great person in Atlanta who actually, he was listening to my podcast. He heard we were having a networking event. He showed up at the networking event, and he's trying to sell me listed REO properties. Anybody ever try to wholesale listed properties that were already on the MLS? You don't have to raise your hand if you're embarrassed. But he started from there. He showed up. He kept doing the right things. And in the first 14 months in Atlanta, we did $1 million in assignments. Like assignments, we flipped a couple of those houses, and it was like $1 million straight. Not like all the houses added up were $1 million, like $1 million that we whacked up. He got 500,000, 500,000 came back to the company. We also added Miami. I'm going to be pulling out of there because that guy really wasn't the same like Austin, who runs Atlanta. We're just not getting a footing in Miami. So right now, my favorite markets are Atlanta, Chicago, and Philadelphia, and that's where I continue to do business. In August, we had a record-breaking month. We did $548,000 in 1 month. We do roughly $200,000 to $300,000 in revenue from either flipping properties or from wholesaling properties. That 35 deals is on a good month, and we do maybe 200, give or take, throughout the course of a year. Of the 200 deals, about 15 or 20% of them, we close on them, we fix them up, and we do the flip the old-fashioned way. Like, not quite HGTV. I like doing paint and carpet or like lower budget rehabs. I don't want to own a property for a year, but we get stuck in some that we own for a long time and do really nice rehabs too. The other 80% are wholesale deals that help us keep funding that marketing machine, let everybody continue to pay their bills, and that's what affords us the opportunity to be picky and choosing with the properties that we actually close on. Of the deals we close on, we raise the money from private lenders. I share all of that to let you know that I'm up here not bullshitting you like some guru who's just on the stage telling you stuff that they're not doing, but we're actually closing hundreds of deals every year. And so I just want you to know my experience and my background. I'm not like trying to brag, but you should have seen my daughter's face in 2015 when she first walked into that condo and she looked out at the lake and she couldn't believe that I was actually living here, being a real dad, right? I thought it was cool. I am bragging about that. How many people in here borrow money currently from somebody who's not a hard money lender? In other words, you don't order an appraisal when this person wires the money in for settlement. How many people in here would like that situation? Cool, okay. I'm gonna talk about the first couple deals I did because it's important to have that conversation and get over the hump. Like the first time I had the money conversation with somebody, I didn't really know how it was gonna go. And honestly, I got a lot of great ideas from somebody. They didn't have a stage. Like I said, this is a little awkward. I'm 5, 6 feet up. But it was a networking event. The guy was on the ground talking, but he had given out a lot of good information about it. And it was just talking about his experience and the conversation that he was having with lenders. And so that's gonna be kind of the goal. I'm gonna talk about that conversation I had. I'm not gonna do a full-fledged presentation. I think PowerPoints are boring. I refuse to do them. I like doing real estate deals and making money, and that's pretty much my main focus, so I don't do PowerPoint. Once I'm done talking about that conversation a little bit, we'll do plenty of Q&A. But the Q&A, I kind of want to be the driver of our time here tonight, rather than just a little bolt-on at the end after I come up here and drone on for an hour. Fair enough? Cool. That first deal I mentioned out of the newspaper ad, I made $5,000. It was in a horrible neighborhood. I brought my 5-year-old daughter, and my dad had to give me a ride to that deal. It was a $5,500 house with a clear title. We're not talking about oh, there was 35 grand in taxes. It was $5,500, and that was a clear title. And when I called a friend of mine, how I figured it out, I didn't know how to comp the deal, but how I figured it out was a friend of mine bought a house on Remington Street around the corner for $6,000. I thought, well, $500. I'm gonna call him up, he'll buy mine, and I'm in the game. I call him up, he says, Dan, no one's gonna buy that house. I'll give you my house on Remington Street. I'll give it to you for $5,500. Why is he gonna lose $500 on it? Every time I went down there to collect the rent, I never got a dime, first of all, but they call it Remington Street because of the Remington shell casings on the front step, and there's a white chalk, but I'm oh my God, this neighborhood's horrible. I grew up in the area, it's Chester, Pennsylvania, but I didn't ever spend time it's the drug-infested trap neighborhood, and I was not running with the right crowd, and I was involved in not a great life when I was in my teenage years, but I still didn't know about how rough and vicious this neighborhood was. I ended up putting an ad on Craigslist, and I remember I was putting in the ad, I put $10,500. I'm in my mom's dining room because I'm living at my mom's house at 25 years old, failing at life. Or maybe have failed at life and was on my way building it back up again. And I remember something inside, I swear it was the voice of God. I said, no, put $11,500. And I back up and put $11,500. 2 weeks later, show it, the guy says, yeah, I'll take it. Didn't even negotiate. Wow, this is nuts, $6 grand. And we do the deal, I make $6,000. I do a similarly, what seeming was a miraculous, handed down from God type. Anybody ever had deals you felt man, I think God just, lit the path and let me figure this out and put this idea in my head, go here, say this, do that, place this ad in a newspaper, send these letters, whatever. So the next one was equally as miraculous in my mind, and it was like a $10 or $11,000 assignment or something in the same area, a little bit slightly less rough area, a little bit more desirable in Chester. I'm going somewhere with this. The third deal, I'm at the networking event and I meet this guy, Craig, and I actually called him out of the newspaper ad. That was my brilliant way to try and get deals, this guy, Craig. And I said, we show up, it's the ring meeting that I have the ring meeting. I'm the one who runs the ring meeting now, but I show up, get the ride there by my dad, and Craig says, you got any deals working? I'm like, dude, this guy's trying to sell me a friggin' burned down house in Chester. And he's like, I think I got a buyer for that. So we make $16,000 on that. Me and him split the assignment. We each made like $8,000 from a chance meeting in a networking event just like we're at tonight. Anybody would like to make 8,000 accidental dollars tonight? It was great. So the fourth deal, after that one, Craig and I are talking now. So I met him at the meeting. This was like 3 or 4 meetings in a row. You see people at these meetings, you end up doing business with the people at these meetings. Who's done business with people at these meetings? Yeah, a couple of us, right? Did you only come to one? You have to be here consistently. People know who you are, and that's how they learn how to trust you, and they start to have a relationship. You know, you can't show up one time and think like, yeah, it's just gonna all magically happen. It takes some consistency. Life, business, success, working out, health, goals, it all takes consistency over a period of time to make it happen. So I'm showing up. The fourth deal with Craig, it was like the fourth and fifth deal, both were with Craig. I guess it was the third, fourth, and fifth. So the fourth deal with Craig, I have this property under contract for $120,000 or so. I forget what the actual number was, and it was in a hot market, 2006. And I called Craig and I said, Craig, I can't remember the fourth and the fifth. I had one he was buying from me, straight wholesale deal, 15K assignment. Huge money, it's humongous money to me, that 15 grand. So that was waiting to settle, and I called Craig on the other deal. I said, I got his property under contract, 120,000, whatever it was. You're gonna bring the cash to the deal this time. We had already split that assignment, so we were already kind of did business on a 50-50 basis. You're gonna bring the cash, I'm gonna bring the deal. We're gonna mop and glow the floors in there. It's like an old house, like grandma'd up with the wallpaper and everything in there. We're gonna mop and glow the floors, and we're gonna pull down the blinds. We're a little bit old or something, and we're gonna put a for sale sign in the front yard. Back then, I was known, that was like my nickname, just put a for sale sign in the front yard. I didn't want to do no rehabs, clean, just put a freaking for sale sign in there. Just get the hell rid of it. Like, I don't want to finish the whole thing. I don't want to spend 6 months. So Craig's like, why don't we just assign it? And I'm like, honestly, Craig, I don't need you to assign this deal. I need you to bring the money, and I had to like reiterate, I need you to bring the money, and we're gonna do a joint venture, and we're gonna sell this to a handyman special contractor who's probably got 3 girls living in the school district already, and they're trying to get out of a rental. I don't know, maybe they inherited money. And he says, okay. So I couldn't believe it. Like, he actually wired the money and showed up, and we 50-50 joint ventured on the deal. I mean, you gotta remember, like, I have a car now, and like, I think I still might have been living at my mom's, but was like starting to make good money. Had an office, you know, I have my swagger up. I got an office. So that was the first deal where I had gotten Craig to actually put some money up on the deal. The fifth and sixth deal, the next 2 deals after that, he just funded the deals flat out. He lent me the money. It was like 5 points, 15% interest. There was no appraisal. He walked the property. The one deal I wanted to assign, Craig, no, I'm assigning this. I just want the 10 grand quick. By this time, he's looking at me like I'm his, his winning horse. He's like trying to shove the money and like forced me to rehab it. I'm like still mad at him almost to this day that he's like so adamant about me, like, and looking back, it was because he was putting, I don't know, 20, 30 grand. It was like some small dollar amount. He was putting that money into play with me at 15% interest and 5 points. So he was thrilled to be like making his passive return as a lender to me and wanted me flipping that house. And like I spent like 2-3 months, a lot of like me actually painting and me actually doing work there. I was better in the living room and making more money faster by focusing on the deal flow and the leads, right? But there it was. I kind of had the conversation with him. If you noticed right there, I shared how I had the conversation with Craig, my first lender, along the way, to get to the point where I was able to go back to him and I asked him for the money on that first flip. I wanted to flip a house since I was 7 years old. I had a paper route, and my dad bought a couple of these houses down in Southwest Philly. You know, cheap ones, 6, 7 grand, 8 grand. This is in 1987. And he would fix them up. You know, they had electrical contracting company, and I'd help with, you know, some of my first tools were like an electrical wire and like splicer and a screwdriver set. I cut my finger out to get stitches. It was a mess. But I remember my dad doing the numbers with me. He says something, they end up with like 15,000 and go back to the bank. And I'm like 9 or 10 years old at the time, by the time he got these done. And he described like his mortgage payment being $175 a month and the rent being $350 a month. And I'm like, dude, this beats my paper route, like hands down. I'm gonna flip houses. That's what I wanna do when I grow up. And I was always trying to save the money and get to the point where I can flip houses. Who here thinks you have to have the money? You have to have money, right, to flip houses first. Is anyone here, is it the money that's stopping you from flipping houses? Couple? Don't be shy. I thought it was too. When I started in 2006, we learned from gurus on the stage, and my dad put credit cards up, like 15 grand or something in total for us to go to these places, and they'd teach us, you know, the ins and outs. What I learned on those expensive get-rich-quick in real estate type real estate, you know, the Than Merrill seminars and stuff, like we went to that stuff, and it worked for me. We went to Millionaire University with Russ Whitney, was the actual one that I attended in Cape Coral, Florida. And they gave me the language so I could go home and not look like the village idiot when I'm talking to the guy Craig at the networking event. So like paying attention to the vocabulary and putting yourself in these places, for me, it was worth it looking back. You know, I didn't think it was worth it a year, 2 years in or something like that. Even still, oh, man, we got bamboozled for 15 grand there. That's nuts. Embarrassed that I went to that thing. But like, really, I knew that we had gotten the value out of it. You can get the value from meetings just like this, paying attention to the way that people are talking and going about the business. But the one thing I took away from that Millionaire University, one thing, the guiding principle of the success that I've had in the real estate business, other than the grace of God, thank God, is becoming the source of the deals. Finding the source of the deals. Focusing on figuring out how to be the source of the deals. If you didn't write it down, you thought that was just too simple, yeah, I got that. Who's doing 100 deals this year? I'm doing 100, 200, I don't know, it's too many. When the market gets hot, I have like 4 whiteboards going up. I like laser focus on that long before I focused on getting the money. I flipped a couple of those deals, and that was 2006. I had the ups and the downs, and through the downs and coming back on in 2012, I focused more on this. Mark Cuban said, build your business. Focus on building a better business, the best business that you can possibly build, and the opportunities will appear. They'll be attracted to you. So, okay, that goes on my vision board. I'm going to write that. I printed it out. Mark Cuban's like yelling it, and it's a quote on the internet, tape it on my wall. And I focused on building the business. And I did that for years and years before I went back out and started raising money again. 2 years ago, like we would do some flips here or there with our own cash on low price ones. I did not want to hear anything about flipping properties. We would flip them like marginally, not a lot. I'm not really interested in doing tons of huge flips. For me, we focused on building this fat pipeline of deals, getting good at negotiating deals, getting good at positioning ourselves with real estate agents and getting our name out there that they know we're closing. That's a very insignificant source of my deals. My significant sources are direct mail, Facebook ads, pay-per-click ads, bus stop benches, signs, tons and tons of referrals. I'm asking for them everywhere. Everywhere I go, all the people that work in our organization are asking for them. But because I had the source of deals over the course of time, that allowed me to cherry pick the deals I wanted to bring to my lenders. So when I go to my lender now, I say, Mike, this guy Mike Cohen. I mailed him a letter or something. I did research, found private lenders. I think there's like a system like privatelenders.com or something. Kent Clothier, if you look his name up, they can get mailing lists of private lenders and you can mail them. And so I mailed this guy Mike Cohen a letter. So when Mike saw that we had all these deals, he checked out the podcast, he called me out of the blue. But when I bring the first deal to Mike, I've never met the guy, and he's going to wire what, $125,000? He's going to wire this to some guy he's never met before. But it was a deal in, I think it was in Bridgeport, or Pilsen. It was somewhere right around there in the area where the neighborhood's improving. It was like a 4 flat. We needed $125,000, and we were reselling the deal as is for $225,000 immediately. That's it. We weren't doing work. We weren't doing this huge thing of construction. We had to buy it. The tenants were being evicted. We had to handle some of the eviction, and then we had to resell it. So like, how easy do you think it was for him? He goes on and he looks in the neighborhood on Redfin, and there's like 5, 6, 650 new constructions in the neighborhood. There's houses that were renovated in the neighborhood at 400. These are the unicorn deals. These are the ones that when you have them under contract, you can't sleep thinking like, man, I hope it doesn't fall apart, title issues, and like, God forbid. That's the deal you want to bring to your investor on the first one to open the door. You want to bring a deal that when they go on Redfin, it's just an obvious home run of a deal. It makes it really safe. That only came through that deal because I became the source of deals. We probably have to do 25 deals at an average assignment, average profit of like, 2,000, 5,000, maybe 15,000, paying the marketing the whole way to get to like the really home run of a deal that we can then bring to our lenders. So we never needed the money ever to do any of the deals. I'll get the money from anyone in this room. Did everyone see how the guy brought the deal up in Pilsen? Zach? Did everyone see how everyone raised his hand? If you weren't paying attention, the people were raising their hand. No, that's like, dude, the guy's handing money out. He's handing out a really good deal. He's in control of the source of deals. And the people who are taking those flyers tonight, like those are your money sources. Those people will pay you for bringing them deals, and if you find the right people to align with, they're like your partner in a sense. They're like your bank. They give you the confidence to go out there and keep working that source of deals to get really good at it. I became, thank God, I study marketing. Spent a lot of time with marketing. I'm passionate about marketing. I like writing ads. I like writing letters. I like writing emails in general. Some of you guys probably read some of my long-winded emails. They're like pages and pages long sometimes. I'm not selling anything either. It's just like this long-winded thing about my podcast. But where I'm going with that is because I became a source of deals and I'm so strong, went to Chicago, we built a team in each of these different cities. We had such an amount of business in Philadelphia that like the guy Craig that I was mentioning, my first lender, who I met in a room like this and who I met from calling out of a for rent ad in the newspaper. I'll go back in the story just a minute. So like why I had no money and why I had no cars, because I got caught in a car drunk one night in a blackout. I woke up in the cell the next morning. The only thing I remember was hitting the curb on the wrong side of the street in this car. It was just a one flash in my memory, because I used to like to drink too much. But the thing is that I didn't own a car at the time. So I was in some deep, deep shit, right? And I went to jail for a year for that, for taking the car, it wasn't mine, and for the DUI. And I read Rich Dad Poor Dad while I was sitting in a jail cell. Anybody else read Rich Dad Poor Dad? So that's where it really started. And I'm in there praying to God, I need something. I mean, now I got those, it's a felony charge. I got a felony charge, and now I can't move to Chicago. I'll never get a job. I can never live out there with my daughter. There's no way I'm ever going to be able to stand on my 2 feet and go to Chicago, all the way away from the security of living with my family every time I fail. There's no way that's ever going to happen. And I share that little part of the story, so like when I met Craig, that was my background. I'm like having to take taxis to get Craig to like fund the deal. Hey, can I get a ride? Like, yeah, why do you need to drive here? Oh, well, I haven't driven since the accident. And his wife's like, oh, really? Are you okay? I still don't think I ever told Craig the full truth about everything that happened, even though I say it on stage and say it in podcast interviews and everything. Craig, I just promoted Craig. He was working as someone in doing like living room face-to-face, and like I promoted him to vice president of my company in Philadelphia on Sunday of this week, because I was the source of deals, because I figured out I put way more deals on the table than I could flip, than Craig could flip, than any one of my like 14 or 15 partners can flip, and like tons and tons of rehabbers do deals because we figured out how to be the source of the deal. Some of that's marketing, getting the sellers to call you, reach out, but a big part of it too is being able to go in the living room and sort through the title issues and get someone to understand the real value of their $300,000 two-flat is actually $55,000 and get them to sign a contract. That's a huge challenge in figuring out how to make deals, is bringing people down to reality of what you actually need the deal for. So some of the key to finding the money is having the deals for the money to get into play. Does that make sense? Cool. So that's an overriding principle for raising money. So a lot of people are going to erroneously go out and start having this conversation with people like long before they've ever figured out how to do deals. Well, Dan said, you know, I could go out and, you know, I'll joint venture this deal. So like when I find the deal, would you joint venture it with me? Wrong. You got to have the deal like right then and there. You're wasting your time. You're going to have no credibility without the deal. So assuming you have the deal, you go have the joint venture conversation. That's how you can do the first one. Like ideally, what I pay the guy Mike in Florida, who I've never met, he like travels the world. It's like a pain. I got to get my mortgage satisfaction document signed off. The documents you use when you're raising money, there's a mortgage and a note that you sign at settlement. You can get copies of that if you want. If anyone wants the website of the ones I used, have your attorney review them first, but superchargedreturns.com. Supercharged, like the Range Rover I drove here in. I'm bragging. It's old though, so. But superchargedreturns.com, you can get a link when you sign up for that to download the note and the mortgage. In addition, so the note and the mortgage are done when you fund the deal. At closing, your lender gets the note, they get the mortgages recorded by your attorney. That's the paperwork that's done for the lender at closing. When you sell the property, the lender actually has to go get a paper notarized mortgage satisfaction document. That's like the document that releases the mortgage from the property so that your end buyer can then buy it after you've rehabbed it, you fixed it up, you just bought and sold it, whatever the case is. So that's the paperwork that's involved generally. Mike goes like around the world for like 3 or 4 months, and he like sends the mortgage docs to the satisfaction document to the attorney that we have, and they're all like, they're sitting on that stuff well in advance. I forget where I was going with that. I got off on a tangent. Doesn't happen much. Oh, I know where I was going with it. So you got your first deal under contract, you funded the deal, you've joint ventured it like I did with Craig. I paid 5 points and 15% interest to Craig way back in 2006. I don't pay that now. When Craig is raising money on my behalf in the Philadelphia market at my pushing and prodding and coaching to pick that 3,000-pound phone receiver up and start asking people for money in his network, we offered 8% interest, no points. So we pay them 8% interest, and this is the kicker. This is really the holy grail of what you want to get if you're having a conversation with lenders. When we borrow money from our lenders, we borrow our money and we pay it back in a balloon. Does anyone not know what that means? Okay, good. I'm glad somebody was honest. I know there's a few more that probably don't. The balloon payment means I borrow $100,000 today. I sell the property in 6 months. How many checks do I cut along the way if it's a balloon payment due upon sale? 1 check at the end for the $108,000, whatever the interest is, all at the end. So hard money lenders are going to want that monthly payment. It helps with cash flow. It helps them sustain their lines of credit because a lot of the hard money lenders are borrowing money at 4%, 5%, 6% against whatever assets they have access to, and they're loaning it to you at 10%, 11%, making a spread. That's not the guy I'm interested in dealing with. I'm also not interested in dealing with somebody who doesn't have the business of being a private lender. I want someone who's an accredited investor who makes, I believe it's $200,000 a year or $300,000 a year if they're married together, the $300,000. I think Endor has $1 million net worth, so that they're sophisticated, accredited under SEC, and they're kind of like exempt. I'm not raising money from Joe Public. I don't want to raise money from the guy who has a $400,000 house and he owes $200,000 and he gets the harebrained idea to go get a line of credit for $100 at 4% and loan it to me at 8, 9, 10%. I don't want to do business with that guy. He doesn't have business. He doesn't have any business investing money. He hasn't really gotten to the place in my eyes in life where he should be loaning money out. I'm looking for someone who's got $500,000 in cash in an IRA. million in cash. That person's emotionally capable of not chasing me around, calling me every 4 nights for an update on the construction. They can sit tight. You know, they've invested money before in other things, you know, and they're not going to get spooked and be like panicked and calling for updates. I don't have time for that. And that's the same reason, so I do the balloon. I don't give a monthly payment when I'm borrowing money from my lenders. For the accounting headache, I don't have to keep cutting checks. I don't even want the ACH coming out of my account. It helps me better manage. You know, maybe we have $2 million right now in the street in Philadelphia with not a single payment due ever until any of it's closed. And we've lost money on deals, and we will cut checks and make them whole with the interest and everything. But it would just be a hassle. I think we have like 15 houses or something, 15 checks, ACHs. It's like a way more strenuous capital requirement for us to not do the balloon payment. So the interest rates typically will go down. A lot of times if it's somebody who's into networking events these days, 2 points, 12% interest is pretty standard. I don't care, I'll pay that. If I'm buying property for $125 and I'm gonna pay 2 points and 12% interest, a lot of the people who are in these networking events may not do the 100% of that loan. But there are people out there who do that, and our lenders that we've developed a relationship over time, we've kind of like created the product. We set the terms up, just like you would set the terms up if you went to your grandma or your aunt or someone else you met, run into that has the money to have the conversation. So like really the going rate for us is between 8 and 10%. It's 8% in Philly because Craig, my partner, has a lot of these people in his network with a high net worth. And 8% is really attractive to these guys. To everyone else in my network, if I met someone in this room tonight and you came up and said, Dan, I got 100 grand, what can we do? I'm gonna tell you, look, I'll do 10% interest and I'll do 2 points origination. That's kind of fat for me. Like I can get it for 8%, the money. I like doing business and treat my lenders like my partners, the same way the wholesalers that bring me my deals, in a sense, to me, they're my partners. You're bringing me these deals. And so I like to think of people like, okay, we can all get a fair shake here. If I'm flipping the property, I have to have enough cushion and risk to be able to make money and justify everything that's going on in the market. If the stock market crashes, if everything changes, the cost of construction materials is going up because of the tariffs and the trade war right now. So material costs on a $60,000 construction project increased by 10 or 15%. We're looking at 66 to 69,000 instead of 60. And if the interest rates go up another quarter point, and it takes me an extra 3 months and I get another quarter point because the Fed raises the rate while I'm waiting on the market and the market gets stale, guess what that does to my top line? The mortgage payment that they could have bought when I bought the property 9 months back only buys, you know, $13, $15, $18, $20,000 less. I've been through the downfall and I've had to cut the checks before, so I want to make sure that I'm safe as a flipper. However, I still view the people that I'm doing business with, everybody, my contractors, I try to treat everybody like we all in the same company. We're all in a sense partners and we're all trying to do this thing together. So I don't try to squeeze every dime out when I can. And it's the same thing I do with the lenders, and that's why I pay 2 points origination, which is a little bit high for me on a loan, and then 10% interest. Now, one of the things I also do is a 90-day minimum payment. Like I sell property sometimes. Sometimes I already have the buyer, and like lenders will also love low amounts. Here's another thing. For the first time lender, if you can bring a deal to them and say, look, I need 35 grand. It's not a lot of money to a lot of people who are at that level. Like if they have $1 million net worth, 35 grand's like, they're making that in a week, 2 weeks sometimes, 35 grand, the people, some of them who are lending the money at that level. So 35 grand, 20 grand, something like that. I got that in the bank. Like I don't need the hassle of it. But that's like a way to open a door with a lender. $35,000. Look, I got a buyer lined up at 60 grand. I just need to close it for 30. I'm going to use the other 5 to do the eviction and pay the utilities. And if there's any overages and costs, I'm covering that. But I already got a buyer at 60. The guy, the gal, whoever it is, yeah, it's a no-brainer. It's a good deal. So starting with that like low dollar amount is also a good way. So if you have cash, and you have one of these deals comes across your plate where you're buying it for 10 grand, 20 grand, something really cheap, that's a good one to take out and like shop to some lender people that you were thinking of, because it'll open a door. And they're like, wow, I'm getting 10% on my 20 grand. And they're thrilled to do the loan in the first place, and then the loan pays back, and they're like, oh my God, it's like 21,000. It's like no money at all. And they're like, well, I wish I would have put 100 up. Damn, now you get the 100 grand for the next, wish would have put 250 up. There's the 250 for the next project. So you can like get them hooked on the interest rate, and they think the interest rate's great, and it is great. But like on the smaller dollar amount, they had to like run down, do the paperwork and everything. It was like a hassle to make a few $100 on the deal. But you've opened up that level of trust with the people that you're doing business with. I'm going to talk about one more thing for people who are slightly more advanced, and you're probably already doing this stuff, but if you've already borrowed money from people and you just want to like systematize it a bit, you got to have a pitch book for your lenders. Who has a pitch book for their lenders? None? So you take before and after photos of your best 3 projects. You know, 15 projects is like, you're killing me with this phone book. 1 project's like, dude, are you looking at me like you got no experience? 3, you're showing them 3 that they can go find the addresses on Redfin, they can find them on Zillow, they can see your after pictures, you're showing them before pictures. And you do it like in this order. You have, you put like befores on one side of the page, you know, put your afters on the other side of the page. So you show them the pictures first, typically. And then you'll show them the purchase HUD, comes next. You know, you're putting this all on a 3-ring binder so that you can sit with somebody and they're paging through it. And you have highlighted on there the money that the lender wired in on the HUD, on the one side, and then you highlight what the money was wired back out so they can see specifically the return of capital, and you could do the dates there and everything. You'd highlight that, and you just set that with them when you're having coffee. This is like you can take and, you know, this, for people who've been borrowing money from people, and you want to go from like having 500, 600,000 at your fingertips to having $5 million at your fingertips, you don't necessarily have to have a project for them right away. These kind of people will be happy to sit, have coffee, and kind of give you a preliminary yes or no. But if you're like new in the game, you don't have the pitch book yet, you don't have the experience, so you got to have the deal on the table in order to get money the first time. So if you're going from, you know, mid-level to like a higher level, you use your pitch book, you put 3 of those deals in with the HUDs in there. One thing you could also show, which is kind of just like filler material, would be the builder's risk policy. Who here uses builder's risk policies? Knows what that is? That's it? Wow. Okay, cool. Builder's risk is if you have a property you're rehabbing, you're really not supposed to put landlord policy on there. In fact, the landlord policy, if that house burns down, there's a good chance that the insurance company will not pay out the claim on your house. Builder's risk is more expensive, typically underwritten with Lloyd's of London. And it is because you're doing like that construction and all of that liability is covered there. And you're going to also want to name as additionally insured your lender. So like some lenders that I have set up LLCs. Oh, this is the Cohen Lending LLC. Puts the money in, does all the stuff, whatever that's on his side. But whatever name he tells me is lending me the money, if it's his personal name or it's his company name, that's going to go on my builder's risk policy as an additionally insured mortgagee, I believe it is. So that's showing on my policy. So I'll tuck one of those policy documents in there with the pitch book because that's something that's important for protection and security for the person who's lending me or committing or thinking about stepping up to 250 or I got another 500 or whatever it is as I'm trying to like level up to the next amount to have at my fingertips. And the final item too would be like the title policy should also name them, the lender, as additionally insured. It's a couple more bucks for you. There's never been a claim in my experience that we've had to deal with in that specific instance. There probably is out there somewhere, but you should have that to protect them, and they should be also listed in that information as well. So the pitch book was the last little piece I had written down to kind of share. But most importantly, man, you got to pump them deal sources up, man. You can control, you know, the whole world of the real estate investing community when you just have way more deals than you could possibly put together yourself. So with that, I will wrap that up, and I'm going to open it up for you to ask some questions. Yes, sir.
How much money you spend in marketing in Chicago?
How much money do I spend marketing in Chicago? Some months I send 100,000 letters. Typically, it's like 20 to 30,000 letters. Up to like 50,000 letters per month in Chicago. I don't know, if I had to guess, it's probably like 40 to 50,000 a month here, depending. Sometimes it's like, you know, there's tons of leads here, and so I'll do like the 40 in Atlanta, but generally like $120,000 a month in marketing is my budget, and I'm probably going to double that going in through the next year because I got more team members, and we're like flipping more properties now. We kind of like, we're growing still, you know what I mean? So I'm like stepping it up. That is a scary amount of money. Even when I did it along the way, like I would flip a house and I'd put like 60, 70% into the marketing. And I was like figuring out what worked and what didn't. There's a whole lot that didn't work years ago. Like I drove the rusty pickup truck for like 3 years longer than I had to get to the place that we're at today as an organization. Yep. Yeah, we do direct mail. I mean, we do direct mail, Facebook. Like even in my Facebook feed for the company has like houses we flipped and stuff like that. So like when I'm sending emails out, there's a lot of agents that are in my network, and I focus a lot of what I talk about toward the agents. So like we get a lot of agents. We get a lot of agents who have properties in neighborhoods that they care not to go show people, and it's like a $60,000 thing, and they're used to selling like $400,000 houses in like Midtown Atlanta, and they're selling us like their family's house. They're like, they inherit a house from their mom, their dad, and they're selling us those kind of houses. So we get like a lot of deals that are from referrals, but direct mail is like my favorite by far because it has staying power. Like you write a good letter, and you send it out to somebody. You got to do thousands too. You got to do 5,000 letters. It's like you could be doing a few hundred letters here and there, and you're going to get winded. You're not going to do it for 3 months straight consistently. And I talked about consistency at the beginning. Like a few hundred letters consistency will net you deals in a specific area. Like we do so many deals because our like marketing nets are huge. We're like an hour drive from downtown in whichever city it is, maybe an hour and a half drive of like, that's our radius. So that's where we're able to get consistency. Say that one more time. Yeah, that's what it is. It's direct mail. I mean, we're doing 100,000. What list? We do all the usual suspects. My favorite list is a high equity list. Yeah, I like a high equity list. My least favorite list is foreclosure. I've been doing that like nonstop, and it's like we have all this short sale stuff, nothing ever. But then, you know, it's like it's hard because we did like a $70,000 deal. Yeah, all that. I like all of them. I do them all. There's no winner. Yeah, there's no winner. Hit all of the lists. Do the high equity last. That's probably most expensive, even though we get. Yeah. So pick one. So, you know, pick one. You know, it's hard to answer for everybody that's listening because some people in here don't want to go into Inglewood and do deals. Who's going to go to Inglewood and do deals? There's a few here, right? Who's going to go to like, you know, I don't even know. I don't even know a good example. So who's going to drive up to Highland Park? Who's going to drive up to Milwaukee? I'm not either. But like depending on what your thing is, if you're flipping houses in a specific neighborhood, then let's say I love Pilsen, and Pilsen's like the place I decide I'm doing business. Well, then I want to figure out how to like talk to the people in the Pilsen, and then maybe I'll do like an absentee owner for the people just in Pilsen. Hey, I live next door, I'm in Pilsen, this is like the neighborhood community, blah, blah, blah. We're like gonna pay the highest price for your house, you should call me. And I'm just gonna like focus on Pilsen, and I'll probably do like 3 deals a year there. Maybe that's my strategy, I'm just looking for a couple to flip. If I'm looking for deals to flip, like Craig didn't want to drive down to North Philly to like sustain his business. He didn't want to drive all the way up like north of Philadelphia an hour to sustain it. He just wanted to hang out in Delaware County, you know, 20, 30 minutes from his house, and so like it never really would have made sense for him. So you got to ask yourself like, how far do I want to drive, and then target accordingly. I like going on to like you can go on to like, I think it's Redfin or one of them. I have VAs that do the research for me, but I'll go like zip code by zip code by zip code, and I'll see like what was the square footage, you know, change in price over the last year. Put them all on a list, and then sort the list and figure out which ones were the highest. And you get some surprises in there. You get some like some zip codes like in Southside Chicago. It's not even like Inglewood. I forget which ones it is because I'm not looking at it. But there's these little like sleeper zip codes that for some reason there's people, they've gone up in value, right? Like the South Side of Chicago has not recovered the way that the entire Atlanta market recovered so far. Philadelphia has recovered a little bit faster and a little bit more evenly than what we've seen in Chicago. For some reason, the South Side's taken forever. But in the last year and a half, 2 years, there's a lot of these little like suburb pockets like South Holland and Joliet where stuff's starting to actually move and come back to life. And it's like for the person who's going to be buying a property, You can get a renovated property for $120,000 to $180,000 in some of these areas where it makes sense, where 3 years ago, a renovated property would have been hard pressed to sell for $99,000. So finding those sleeper zip codes that no one else is marketing to and hitting them with your high equity list, all of a sudden it's like, you know, this high equity that's owner occupied, maybe I'm like sending them a letter, maybe like an absentee owner, like might be a separate type of conversation because they're not living there. It's like an investor, it's like an extra house. But I might want to, if my budget is limited, then I sit there and I do all the research and I figure out which one of these neighborhoods had the increase. Because when the increase comes, it's a lot easier to do the deals with people. Like these taxes are outrageous on this, all over our area here. The taxes are outrageous. So when the property values climb up, like when I got here in 2015, we couldn't do deals in West Garfield Park. We couldn't do them in East Garfield Park. The values hadn't come up enough where anyone was paying more than 25, 30 grand for the 2 flats. And there's more debt on like every single 2 flat. Even the people that are paying the bills are stuck with 1-year taxes almost. It's like an exaggeration, but most of the properties that are like in disrepair also have neglected to pay water bills and neglected to pay at least 2 years, 3 years worth of taxes. And when you add that up, a few years ago you couldn't do deals there. Now you can do deals there, you could do deals in Austin, you could do deals in South Shore. The values have climbed a little bit. So like finding those areas there, if you're willing to drive to those areas and do deals, you find those little pockets in those markets rather than like a shotgun approach. Shotgun everywhere. You're sending all these letters to Wilmette. Like, well, 90%, 95% of the people in Wilmette have the money to maintain the property. They don't need our service. It's not a good fit. We're a good fit as investors. We're a good fit to like move this distressed inventory through the process, invest our capital, risk our capital for the return that we get when we resell the property or rent it out or what have you. We serve a function in society for these distressed properties that are out here. So like, where are there more of those? Target those areas too. It's easier to do deals with them than like, we all love, oh yeah, we're gonna need this great, wonderful property in Highland Park. It's really rare that like properties come up in Highland Park that make a lot of sense. There are a few. That's not really my specialty, and I wouldn't spend my money trying to chase like a super nice, you know, $1 million home in Highland Park just because it like seemed sexy to me when I first got into business. Good question though. In the back.
How did you go about finding your private lenders? You said one time you used the system. What other ways do you recommend to find lenders?
How many deals, the question was, how do you find private lenders? So how do I find my private lenders? How many deals do you have to fund right now? Not many? You have unlimited deals right now? Like how many? Do you have like 14 deals under contract? So you got 10 deals under contract. Do they actually justify being funded and resold? Okay, I get them all funded, but a lot of times usually the deals, like when we look into my own deals, if I have 10 deals under contract, 1 justifies being funded. You could bring them to like the hard money lenders or see if anyone in here wants to joint venture on those deals, and if they are really solid home run deals, I'll joint venture and close all 10 of them. I'll be happy to do that in a heartbeat. So if you got the unlimited deals, like people will step up and do them. There's people in here right now. If there was a rock star home run of a deal, who in here is ready to joint venture? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 of us here right now. You got 10 deals. So there are the private lenders. It's always easier to start with a joint venture to open up, you know, like when even now, when I flip properties, like I'm a handshake agreement guy. We've got, you know, millions of dollars worth of inventory and deals floating around in all these different markets, and like not even, I don't think a single one of those deals. I own like 15 rentals in companies that I actually own. All the rest of those are all in my partner's LLCs. I don't want to have to show up at closings. I don't have time for all those deeds, for all those contracts. I don't have time for all that stuff. That's nuts. So like finding people that, you know, are going to put the money out, they're going to want to put that property in their name. That's going to be fine. You can write up some kind of like little operating agreement with that person. That's what I did with Craig early on like 2 or 3 deals. If one of those guys dies I do business with, I'm probably burnt. It's going to be hard for me to get my money. It's probably stupid for me to do that and a little bit lazy, but we're making really good money right now, and it probably wouldn't make a big difference to me if one of them did. And there was like a few deals that went the wrong way. But yeah, these meetings are going to be a really good place to find your lenders for sure. One thing too, so one thing is if you're gonna have that conversation and call people and you have deals ready to fund right now, get a piece of paper out when you go home and write down everybody's name that you think has the money for funding the deal. Anyone you can think of, you brainstorm the whole list and you put their numbers right next to it, and then at a reasonable hour, like tomorrow, you pick one of your deals and then you call down the list. So like sometimes the procrastination of being able to like ask someone for money, ask someone for money is gonna like stop you a little bit. So like if you just wake up and say, you know what, I'm calling all 10 of these people and I'm gonna ask them, look, I got an opportunity, it's a real estate deal, it's a home run of a deal. I was thinking maybe you might have a way to fund this and we could work together on it. Would you mind meeting me to go over the details for coffee? I can do 1 o'clock tomorrow, I could do like 4:30 on Friday afternoon, which one's gonna work better for you? And have that conversation with them. The list is important to run through that exercise to see if there's anybody that you're thinking of. I always forget our Outlanders. They're all pissed off. Dan, I forgot. You know, dude, I forgot that you had money to put into play. I'm sorry. Got a lot going on.
I guess. So I've been dealing with some hard money guys, which is fine to a certain degree, but I try to get away from dealing with the whole family and friends money. I did that, and it worked out okay, and I paid everybody. But I didn't want them to be in my business. So I started going that hard money route. And now I've run across a handful of deals where I can get them for less than the 50 grand. But those hard money guys won't give me any money for that. You know what I mean? They want to because it's cost them too much money to write the paper. I guess at least the last couple that I've done some deals with that are more than 50, of course. 3 times now. I got 2 deals right now. I can buy them both for 40 and 35.
What could you sell them for tomorrow?
I mean, I could sell them for 75. I just wanted to, both of them need about 5 grand. I could rent them for 1,500.
Yeah, I mean, they might be good deals. So I would want to do like 5 or 10 of those and I would just want to capture the money on assignments now, and then I got enough money to keep one for a rental later. So like, I don't know that I'm qualified to answer the question for you, because like my mode of operation is, first of all, I'm selling all my rentals. My company mission, yeah, is to promote home ownership with our activities. So that's not in line with my mission. And all of a sudden I look around, I got all this like headache, and I got all these rentals, and they're making money, and they're going up in value, but it's not a money motivated thing for me. I like to, even if I'm wholesaling a deal and the guy ends up renting it, fine. Maybe that property and the money involved on the deal didn't fit our parameters for us to like plug it through our machine, renovate it, and sell it to someone who's gonna be there. But like as many times as I can like fix a house up and sell it to someone who's gonna live there, like for us, we're like carrying out our mission of promoting home ownership. The other angle is from an investment philosophy, like when I write my rules out as far as why I buy real estate and why I sell real estate and why I'm doing what I'm doing, is like the velocity of money is really important to me. So I want to like maximize my return, but also in the shortest amount of time possible. So like for me, the rentals didn't work either. So like when you bring me the deal, like the lens I'm looking at through the deal is like, look, if I can make 30,000 tomorrow on the deal, and this person wants to sell it right now for 35, they want to sell it right now for 35. They came to me to sell it right now for 35. They didn't want me to like linger around a few months and then they want a buyer. So I have a duty to that person to consummate that deal. And like if I don't have the wherewithal, whether it's like my capital in the bank to do something else with it, like I'm gonna find someone in the room who believes it's worth 75 and is probably worth more on the flip. So I'm just gonna capture, you know, that right now and satisfy everyone. Yep. Exactly. For now, that's my main mission. Yep. For me, it's too risky. So like why I also don't like my rental properties, I'm like, man, you know, a couple years ago, I was going to get 10 rentals, and each one was going to be 5,000 or whatever. It was going to add up to 5 or 10 grand a month, and I could like be on easy street and relax. But then like 2 years went by, and it was like the turnovers cost me money, and now I'm like breaking even on them. So like a turnover is the tenant moves out, I got to paint and carpet the place, and they tore off a couple doors. I'm $5,000 to turn the property over. I'm missing rent for 2 months, 3 months. Now it's marketing, it's a 4th month. So if I add up 4 months at $1,500 a month for that property, that's 6 grand. Right. Now I'm 10 grand in the hole.
Right, I'm with you there, but say you go to do flip it, I get a cop here, I'm on the south side myself, I understand that. So
yep.
in Inglewood, you go to
That's why that one might not fit our model necessarily for the home ownership thing.
That's been my issue on the south side of the city. I go to put them for sale to flip. I'm tired of losing that 4 months or 5 months because.
I agree. I'm dealing with it now.
So
I'm
that's
dealing
why
with it now.
I've been here. I've been my own employer my whole life. I don't have my 401k. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna put together 100 rentals. At least I can give something to my kids.
I would just assign it. I would just assign it, be done with it. The kids don't want to run around and chase tenants. I found that out already. My daughter's only 16. Yeah, she's not. Plus, you know what else? It's like, I'm sure there's ways to like transition the properties to the heirs and everything. I've seen a lot of people who have hundreds of properties, and like when they get older, the kids don't have the interest in the business, and like without watching those details, like the most successful landlords are typically going to be the landlords who are there on the day before the tenant moves out, or like a week, month, 2 months before. They're showing their rental property themselves, self-managing the property, and they probably have like 20, 30. So that person is going to not have the same like vacancy rate. They're going to watch every detail. The kids got also the same thing. So like the guys I know who have hundreds of properties late in life now, I've seen this like more than one time unfold in more than one market because of the way that we market to people who own those properties. They're trying to sell them as fast as possible before they hit their deathbed. So they're trying to get rid of all that and just get the cash to the kids. There's too much complexity in a 100-unit rental portfolio with all the loans, whose loan payments, which insurance companies, and like I've seen other people, this kid's name was Silver Spoon. We knew him growing up. That was his nickname because he grew up with the silver spoon. His dad was all this money from 50, 80, 100 rentals, whatever. The dad died, Mr. Nicola, he died, and the kid didn't have any clue. Lost them all at tax sale. The whole fucking thing. Excuse my language. All 100 properties. You know, he might have figured out he had 2 or 3 of them and sold them, but like he wasn't capable of making the same decisions. It's hard to throw people out. It's hard to sort through those details. And like, so, you know, when I got my 15 rentals or however many I have, it was like I got to the top of the ladder. He said, climbing the ladder of success. And I got to the top and I was like, damn, I'm on the wrong, I put it up against the wrong building. So what was the next question? Oh, do I target high-end condominium markets? And the answer is no, and there's a couple reasons. The associations are all so various. I'll buy it. If a condo comes through, I'm going to attempt to make a deal anyway on it, and we make offers on those high-rises a lot. The condo, like where I live, I got the letter last night. $200,000, someone put as-is contract on it, and then the board sends us out this letter, and this lady saying, there's property, it's under contract for $200,000 cash, which is an abomination, and we're going to exercise our first right of refusal and buy this property ourselves. So my condo's like buying these properties. The damn thing needs like $60,000 rehab. It's like horrible in there. And they're buying it, and then they'll probably sell it for $289. They sell it to someone in the building because it's a big building, but they're making like $20,000 on this big fat reserve pile. I think it's great because I live there, and they've been doing this for so long that it keeps, like, we have a nice pile of money in the condo association. That's why I chose to move into this building. Like, this is great. They're flipping houses for whatever the return is, and they're taking other investors' deals. So I don't want to be the investor who made the offer, and I'm thinking I'm going to settlement, and like this board has like a vendetta. So that's like one small thing, and that's not as big of a problem as like when you buy into a condo and somehow you didn't check the financials, and then you discover that there's like a $8 million assessment on the high rise. So like we had a $7 or $8 million special assessment on my old condo building. I rented there, thank God. I chose not to buy because of the assessment. But that came down in the tune of like a $45,000 bill for every unit owner that was in there. So you're buying these properties, like we buy properties to flip, we're making 40, 50, 60 grand. Sometimes we're making 20, 30 grand. Well, if that special assessment happens to come down the pike from the condo, while I'm flipping it, dude, I'm negative. Like I'm stuck in it. I can't rent it out. There's like too many restrictions and everything. So there's a lot of risk coming from that where like if they come through, I'll look at them, but I'm not going to target them for the amount of headaches and risk that's involved with condos.
Have you reviewed cold call and success with it?
Do I cold call and do we have success with it? We do cold call. We've had mediocre success. I feel like we've had mediocre success with everything that we do. All the mail campaigns, all the pay-per-click ads, all the Facebook ads, all the agent referrals. But like we've developed so many sources of them over the years that it adds up to something that, you know, is pretty cool. So you could do deals. Like I know a woman in Evanston, and she's an agent, so I think it helps if you're an agent to do cold calling. And she just pounds the phone like every week or something, every day. I don't remember what her frequency. She's consistent with it, like we mentioned before. And she probably gets like 3 or 4 flips per year out of Evanston, just tiny little Evanston. And she like really doesn't do anywhere else. And she buys a couple rentals out of there every so many years, and she gets a couple listings out of there, I'm sure, every so many years. And she's like, she runs her business. That's her main primary source, is doing cold calls. So adding the agent piece, I think, is probably a good part. It's like, hey, look, I want to buy properties in the area, blah, blah, blah. I wanted to come out, is there any interest in, you think you would sell it? And they're like, yeah, okay, that's cool. And so like, all right, I'm going to come out. And then now you can get out there and you tell them you're an agent, but you're also buying properties. I think you have to disclose being an agent when you cold call. But when you get out there, you look around the property and you have your whole listing presentation already set and ready to go as an agent. It's like, oh, this thing's retail ready. It's just, this is not really a great fit for us. It's not ethical for me. Like, I don't have a license. It's still like, I'm just going to tell them, look, flat out, it's just like, I know there's more money here. If you were my mom, I would want you to just list this property. I pulled the comps because I was planning on showing you what the value is. Here, look, this is what it actually would go for, and if I'm going to pay cash for this property, like I was kind of looking for something to flip, and it really wouldn't be right. So like, if you want, I could help you out with this. If you have someone else, you know, that's great too, but it's kind of like a dual-pronged approach that really works well for her, that conversation. And I know works well for a lot of people who cold call who are agents, which is why our results are probably mediocre. We did like 3 deals this whole year from like 2 or 3 different people calling. And 2 of the 3 deals, two were in Maywood. One was actually in like Vernon Hills or something, so 4 actually, and then the other one was like Delray Beach, Florida, so it only worked out for us because we were in Miami doing business. What are the chances? I'm sure that there's someone in here who's probably like, yeah, thank God he doesn't know the deal, man. I'm getting so many deals from cold calling, looking at me like I'm the idiot. We have one in the front here.
If you're doing pay-per-click ads and stuff like that, how do you turn those into actual leads and then close on them?
Pay-per-click is cool. I've been doing it since 2007. It's like a whole lot of tricks and like a whole lot of time you're going to need to spend in there. And if you're really good with like web development, I suggest starting with pay-per-click and getting ready to spend like, you know, at least a year or so, getting it like optimized so that your leads are pumping in. You could waste a lot of money doing pay-per-click. So pay-per-click is everybody, you go to Google and you type something in there and then like ads show up. And some of those ads are paid for. So like whenever someone clicks on that ad, you're going to pay for that. So like when the market was shitty, back in 2011, 2012, it was like $1, $2 per click. I'm at like $60 to $70 on some of my clicks, and the average click is like $30 per click. And you probably need like, I don't know, 40 clicks maybe for every person that actually calls. So the leads are expensive. They're like sometimes $500 to $1,000 per lead. The direct mail leads are probably like $200 per lead. If I add up the cost of like sitting there by paying some guy $12 an hour to put leads in, those leads are probably like $200 per lead. So like leads are probably roughly $200 per lead. Sometimes you get lucky and they're like 100. Sometimes pay-per-click. The only thing about pay-per-click, it's good. You got to be ready to run out there quick, but there's a lot of competition on the deals because they're going to like click down everyone and like have a bidding war basically. A lot of the people don't really know what they're doing who are doing that stuff, so they show up in the living room and like there's maybe a handful of people who are like really good when they get out to the living room and sign a deal up, but a lot of people are wasting their money with pay-per-click. But it's cool, they need to sell. They're looking to sell now, a lot of FSBOs too, so if you're an agent and you're doing that pay-per-click thing, maybe that's like a good avenue again. There are deals there, it's like, it's definitely a lead source.
So, I seem like you're managing a lot of leads. What do you use to manage your leads? Like, do you use
To manage my lead flow?
Yeah, you have CRM?
Yeah, good question. Podio, CRM is like how we track the leads and how we put the leads in. Used to do it in notebooks, but Podio, Podio.com. It's free to like set it up, and there's like these little build outs that you can get in there and really customize it. And so like ours has gotten like super, you know, there's like areas in there I think where I have someone do research, digging through public records, adding like, you know, like in Atlanta, we have like this tax list comes out, but it's like they give you the PIN. That's it. You can't mail to a PIN. Well, I have the VA go through and add address information to everyone, and then she uploads that into like a space in Podio, and that like automatically somehow mails out. So like I have an IT guy now. We probably pay him close to like 6 figures a year, and he's a consultant, but he's like always customizing that for us. You don't need that level of customization for Podio to like change your life, and there's a lot of videos online, YouTube, etc. There's even like Investor Fuse has it built out for Podio, but Podio is like a really great system to get like working. So if you're already like talking with sellers and like face to face with seller leads and not using some kind of software to track it, Podio is worth the time to get into and figure that out, because there's a huge learning curve there, just like pay-per-click. But if you're not already like interacting with sellers, if you haven't figured out how to get sellers to pick the phone up and call you, and you're trying to do direct to seller, don't waste the time with Podio yet. Go put bandit signs up. Go knock door to door. Go figure out how to have